The moon's surface glittered with the lights of 10,000 celebration pods, each one filled with humanity's first lunar colonists marking their successful first year on Earth's satellite. Champagne flowed in low-gravity arcs as children bounced in regulated play zones, their laughter echoing through pressurized domes. This was humanity's crowning achievement, their first permanent settlement beyond Earth. Captain Amanda Reynolds stood at the observation deck of the UDF Genesis, watching the festivities with quiet pride. At 42, she'd fought hard for her command, rising through ranks that still hadn't fully adjusted to women in leadership positions. The Genesis, while not the largest ship in Earth's modest fleet, was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever constructed. Not that anyone beyond her crew knew its true capabilities. Captain, Lieutenant Park's voice crackled through her neural implant. Multiple spatial distortions detected at the edge of lunar orbit. Mass readings are, ma'am, they're off the charts. Reynolds straightened her midnight blue uniform, squared her shoulders, and strode to the bridge. The celebration below continued, unaware of what was about to unfold. As she entered, the main view screen filled with a sight that humanity had both dreamed of and dreaded: first contact. They emerged from hyperspace like a metal tide, sleek, predatory shapes that made Earth's finest ships look like children's toys. The alien vessels gleamed with an iridescent coating that seemed to drink in sunlight, their hulls adorned with marks that could only be battle scars. Leading them was a behemoth that stretched nearly 5 kilometers from bow to stern. "How many?" Reynolds asked, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. 10,000 ships, Captain. Maybe more. Park's fingers danced across his holographic interface. They're taking up attack positions around the moon and Earth. Reynolds had trained for this moment her entire career, but the simulations paled against reality. Earth's defense fleet consisted of exactly 50 ships, a fact that had caused much political debate over funding. If only they knew. The main screen flickered, and a face appeared that would haunt humanity's nightmares if they survived the next 24 hours. The alien commander possessed 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, his scaled skin shifting colors like oil on water. When he spoke, his words came through perfectly translated, which was the first warning sign that they'd been watching Earth for some time. "I am Admiral Xarlos of the Galactic Hegemony. Your species has been evaluated and found worthy of absorption into our enlightened civilization." His upper eyes blinked in sequence with his lower ones. "Your technological level is adequate. Your genetic diversity will strengthen our breeding programs. Resist, and we will demonstrate why no species has successfully defied the hegemony in 10,000 years." Reynolds felt her crew's eyes on her. They'd drilled for this countless times, but theory and practice were very different things. She touched the small quantum core pendant hidden beneath her uniform. The real reason she commanded this ship. "Admiral," she responded, allowing a slight tremor in her voice. "This is Captain Amanda Reynolds of the United Defense Force. You've caught us in the middle of a celebration. Surely we can discuss this like civilized beings." Xarlos's scales rippled with amusement. "Your attempt at diplomacy is noted, but unnecessary. You have 24 hours to surrender formally. We've studied your weapons, your ships, your pitiful attempts at defense. The outcome is inevitable." Reynolds glanced at her tactical display. The alien ships had already surrounded Earth's fleet, their energy readings suggesting weapon systems that could vaporize her ship with a single shot. She forced her hands to shake slightly as she responded. We'll need those 24 hours to confer with Earth's governments." The alien admiral's scales shifted to a deep purple of satisfaction. "Of course. Consider it a final gift from the hegemony. We are not without mercy." As the transmission ended, Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. "Lieutenant Park, send the quantum sync codes to the fleet, and get me Dr. Mitchell at Project Quantum Leap. Tell her it's time." The real game was about to begin. 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Jessica Mitchell watched the alien fleet's deployment pattern for the 7th time. Her father's last words echoed in her mind. Sometimes the best defense isn't a bigger gun, it's making them miss entirely. He died testing the first quantum engine on Mars, but his theories had laid the groundwork for what they were about to attempt. Primary quantum core stability at 97%, announced Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, his dark eyes fixed on the swirling holographic display. The synchronization wave is holding, but these power requirements are insane. Jess. The Project Quantum Leap facility hummed with nervous energy. Dozens of the world's brightest minds monitored equipment that had cost more than most countries' GDP. The central chamber housed a miniature quantum core, a perfect replica of the ones hidden aboard each of Earth's 50 ships. "Show me the fleet positions again," Jessica commanded, her red hair pulled back tight enough to hurt. Pain helped her focus and overlay the quantum field projections. The hologram shifted, showing Earth's seemingly random fleet deployment. But Jessica saw the pattern. Each ship occupied a precise position in three-dimensional space, creating a lattice of quantum connection points. What looked like tactical incompetence to the aliens was actually a carefully choreographed dance. Dr. Mitchell, a young technician, burst into the control room. "We're detecting power fluctuations in cores 7 through 12. The containment fields are struggling with the temporal feedback." Jessica's hands flew across her console. The quantum cores weren't just bending space, they were creating microscopic tears in the fabric of reality itself. Each tear lasted only picoseconds, but they were growing more frequent. "Divert power from the secondary cooling systems," she ordered. "We don't need them if this works. And if it doesn't." She left the thought unfinished. The facility shuddered as another power spike hit. On her screens, Jessica watched the quantum field ripple outward. They were pushing the boundaries of theoretical physics, attempting something that most scientists had dismissed as impossible. Her father had died trying to prove them wrong. "Message from the Genesis," Rodriguez announced. "Captain Reynolds reports the hegemony is getting suspicious of our power signatures. We need to stabilize the field, or they'll detect the quantum cores." Jessica pulled up the original equations, her father's last gift to humanity. He'd discovered that space itself had a quantum frequency, like a vast cosmic string that could be plucked. The trick wasn't moving through space, it was convincing space to move around you. "Route all power through the primary containment grid," she decided. "And get me a direct line to Captain Reynolds." The captain's face appeared on her screen, looking remarkably calm for someone surrounded by an alien armada. "Please tell me you have good news, Doctor. The quantum field is stable, but we're seeing unexpected temporal effects." Jessica brought up the latest data. "When we activate the full array, there's a 20% chance we'll create a cascading time dilation effect." Meaning we might experience time differently than the hegemony during the jump. Could be seconds, could be minutes. We'll be vulnerable. Reynolds nodded grimly. "Better than being dead. How long until we can initiate?" Another alarm blared. Jessica's screens filled with warning signals as 3 more quantum cores reported fluctuations. The cores are talking to each other, she realized. They're creating a quantum entanglement network we didn't predict. This could either solve our power problems or tear a hole in reality. "Which is more likely?" Reynolds asked. Jessica thought of her father, of his belief that humanity's greatest strength was its ability to turn disadvantages into advantages. "The cores want to sink. I say we let them." "Do it," Reynolds commanded. "Better to risk everything than surrender to slavery." Jessica's fingers flew across her console, implementing changes that would have taken weeks to approve under normal circumstances. The facility's lights dimmed as power redirected to the quantum network. Below them, the massive particle accelerators spun up to full power, feeding energy into the quantum cores. "All ships, adjust positions by 0.03 degrees, she ordered. "Quantum synchronization in 10 minutes, and someone get me some coffee. This is going to be one hell of a light show." 6 degrees port, all power to maneuvering thrusters. Captain Reynolds commanded, watching the Genesis execute another seemingly erratic turn. On her tactical display, the rest of Earth's fleet mirrored her movements in perfect synchronization. To the hegemony, it must have looked like a dance choreographed by madmen. Admiral Xarlos's voice crackled through the command channel, dripping with condescension. Captain Reynolds, your fleet's behavior is concerning. Perhaps your neural systems are malfunctioning. We would be happy to provide technical assistance before your surrender. Just some routine exercises, Admiral, Reynolds replied, forcing a tremor into her voice. We want to look our best when we join the hegemony. The lie tasted bitter, but it was working. The alien fleet maintained their containment formation, their massive ships casting long shadows across the lunar surface. Below, the celebration had turned into an evacuation, though Reynolds knew the shelters wouldn't save anyone if their plan failed. Lieutenant Park, status of the quantum field, she asked after closing the channel. Building, ma'am, but there's something strange. Park's fingers danced across his holographic controls. The field isn't just bending space, it's creating temporal eddies, like ripples in time itself. Reynolds touched her quantum core pendant, feeling its subtle vibration. Get me Dr. Mitchell. The scientist's face appeared, looking even more stressed than before. Captain, we've discovered something unprecedented. The quantum cores aren't just generating a teleportation field. They're folding time itself. Each ship is experiencing time slightly differently, microseconds apart. Is that good or bad? Both. It means we'll be harder to track, but positioning is absolutely critical now. One ship out of place, and we could scatter across different temporal planes. Reynolds studied her tactical display. The fleet had nearly completed its formation, a three-dimensional geometric pattern that looked random but followed precise mathematical principles. Each ship's position had been calculated down to the millimeter. Hegemony vessels are scanning us again, Park reported. Their energy readings are spiking. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched several alien ships move closer, their iridescent hulls reflecting sunlight like predatory fish. Their weapon ports were still closed, but that could change in an instant. Dr. Mitchell, we need options. The hegemony is getting suspicious. The temporal effect is cascading, Mitchell replied, her voice tight with concentration. Each ship needs to adjust its position by 0.7 degrees to compensate. I'm sending new coordinates now. Reynolds relayed the orders, watching as her fleet executed another series of precise maneuvers. To maintain the deception, she transmitted a series of panicked-sounding orders over open channels, making their movements appear desperate and uncoordinated. Captain, Park's voice cut through the tension. Multiple temporal signatures appearing around the fleet. It's like we're leaving echoes in time. The view screen confirmed it. Ghost images of Earth ships flickered in and out of existence, appearing seconds before or after their actual positions. The effect was beautiful and terrifying, like watching reality itself fragment into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. The hegemony's scanning us again, Park reported. Their sensors are going crazy trying to track all the temporal signatures. Dr. Mitchell's voice crackled with excitement. This is perfect. The temporal echoes will mask the quantum field buildup. They'll think it's just sensor ghosts. Reynolds watched as more temporal duplicates appeared around her fleet. Each ship now seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, their ghost images creating a confusing web of potential positions. All ships maintain current formation, she ordered. Let them think we're having technical difficulties. Dr. Mitchell, how long until we can initiate? 20 minutes to full quantum synchronization. But Captain, these temporal effects might give us an advantage we didn't expect. When we make the jump, we won't just be moving through space. We'll be moving through time as well. Reynolds finished, understanding dawning. They won't just miss us. They won't even know when to look for us. The Genesis shuddered as another temporal wave passed through the fleet. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched their ghost images multiply, creating a dance of quantum possibilities that even their own sensors struggle to track. "Now this," she whispered, "is how you hide in plain sight." Admiral Carlos stalked the bridge of his flagship, scales shifting from deep purple to angry crimson. 20 hours had passed, and the primitive human's behavior made less sense with each passing minute. Their ships continued their bizarre movements, generating impossible sensor readings that his best technicians couldn't explain. "Look at them," he snarled, gesturing at the main display. 50 obsolete vessels, crewed by beings who barely understand gravitic propulsion. Yet our sensors show thousands of ghost signatures. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vex, studied the readings. "The temporal anomalies are increasing, Admiral. Each human ship appears to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Our targeting systems can't establish lock. Impossible. They're using some form of primitive electronic warfare. Prepare the first wave for attack. I tire of this game." Aboard the Genesis, Captain Reynolds watched the hegemony fleet's energy signatures spike. "They're done waiting, Dr. Mitchell. Please tell me we're ready." "Almost." Mitchell's voice was strained. "The temporal effect has created something unprecedented. Each quantum core is generating its own micro-universe of possibilities. When we make the jump, we'll briefly exist in all of them simultaneously." Reynolds gripped her command chair as another temporal wave washed through the ship. On her tactical display, she watched ghost images of her fleet ripple through space-time like stones dropped in a cosmic pond. Each echo lasted only microseconds, but they were becoming more frequent, more substantial. "Hegemony ships are powering weapons," Park announced. "Multiple targeting locks detected. No, lost them again. The temporal signatures are confusing their systems." In the underground facility, Dr. Mitchell raced against time. The quantum cores had synchronized beyond her wildest expectations, creating a network of temporal spatial connections that defied conventional physics. Her father's equations flashed across her screen, no longer theoretical but proving themselves in spectacular fashion. Energy spike from the hegemony fleet. Rodriguez shouted, "They're going to fire blind." "All ships, maintain formation," Reynolds ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Dr. Mitchell, quantum field at 98% synchronization. The temporal effect is protecting us, Captain. Their targeting systems can't distinguish between our real ships and the time echoes. Each shot they fire has only a fractional chance of hitting anything solid." The first hegemony volley proved her right. Massive energy beams sliced through space where Earth ships had been, or would be, or might have been. The temporal echoes absorbed the attacks like ghosts, while the real vessels remained untouched. "Fascinating," Mitchell muttered, watching the data stream. "The quantum cores are using the attack energy to stabilize their fields. The more they shoot, the stronger our temporal shield becomes." Admiral Carlos roared in frustration as another volley passed harmlessly through multiple images of the human fleet. Impossible. No primitive species could develop temporal manipulation technology. They barely understand faster-than-light travel. "Sir," Vex interrupted, "energy readings from the human fleet are approaching critical levels. Whatever they're doing, they're about to." On the Genesis, Reynolds felt the quantum core pendant grow warm against her skin. "Dr. Mitchell, synchronization complete. The temporal matrix is stable. Captain, we didn't just create a teleportation system. We've created a way to choose which reality we want to exist in. Meaning when we make the jump, we'll briefly exist in every possible timeline where we succeed. The hegemony won't just miss us. They'll be fighting shadows of possibilities that never fully manifested." Reynolds allowed herself a small smile. "Send the activation codes. All ships, prepare for quantum jump on my mark." The Genesis hummed with power as the quantum core spun up to full capacity. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched the hegemony fleet launch another futile attack, their weapons passing through temporal ghosts, while their sensors struggled to locate the real targets. "Think they'll learn anything from this?" Park asked, his hand steady on the controls. "Oh yes," Reynolds replied, watching the temporal echoes multiply around her fleet. "They're about to learn that humanity's greatest trick isn't having the biggest fleet or the most advanced weapons." "What is it then, Captain?" "Making the impossible look inevitable. All ships, initiate quantum jump." The quantum jump didn't happen all at once. Later, witnesses from the lunar colonies would describe it as the most beautiful thing they'd ever seen, like watching the aurora borealis dance across space itself. It began with the genesis. The temporal echoes surrounding Reynolds' ship suddenly converged, creating a cascading wave of blue-white energy that rippled through the vacuum. For a split second, the ship existed in every possible successful timeline simultaneously, its form blurring as reality struggled to decide which version was real. Energy signatures are off the scale. Park's voice was barely audible over the ship's humming. Quantum core reaching theoretical maximum. Reynolds watched as her tactical display exploded with information. The Genesis wasn't just teleporting. It was sliding between realities, sampling each possible success before choosing its path. Through the view screen, she saw the hegemony fleet's weapons fire pass harmlessly through spaces where her ship might have been, would be, or never was. In the underground facility, Dr. Mitchell's computers were processing data faster than any system ever built. The temporal matrix is holding. Each ship is generating its own quantum bubble, but they're all linked through subspace. "Captain, you have to see this. The fabric of space-time itself is." Her voice cut off as the second phase began. The remaining 49 ships of Earth's fleet started their own transitions, each one trailing streams of quantum energy like cosmic butterfly wings. The effect rippled outward in a perfect geometric pattern, each vessel's jump timed to the microsecond. Admiral Carlos watched in stunned silence as his target dissolved into impossibility. What are they doing?" "Sir." Vex's scales had turned pale gray, a sign of extreme distress. "Our sensors are detecting quantum signatures unlike anything in our database. The humans aren't just disappearing. They're rewriting probability itself." The space around Earth's fleet had become a kaleidoscope of quantum possibilities. Ghost images appeared and vanished faster than even hegemony computers could track. Each ship seemed to sketch a path through dimensions that shouldn't exist, leaving trails of blue-white fire across the void. "All ships, Phase 2 complete," Reynolds announced, her voice steady despite the reality-bending forces surrounding them. "Dr. Mitchell, status of the quantum matrix." It's perfect." Mitchell's voice was filled with wonder. "The temporal echoes are creating a protective barrier. Even if they could track us, their weapons would have to pass through billions of probability shadows to reach us." The Genesis shuddered as reality flexed around it. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched stars bend and twist, their light distorted by the quantum fields. Her ship now existed in a state between states, neither fully here nor completely gone. In the hegemony flagship, chaos erupted as sensors overloaded and artificial intelligence systems crashed, unable to process what they were witnessing. "Fire," Sarlos commanded. "Fire everything." 1,000 energy beams lanced out from the alien fleet, creating a web of destructive force that should have annihilated anything in its path. Instead, they passed through an infinite array of temporal echoes, each shot striking nothing but possibilities that had already ceased to exist. "Final phase initiating," Mitchell reported, her voice tight with concentration. "Captain, you need to know. When we complete the jump, we'll be seeing through time itself. Every ship in the fleet will perceive reality slightly differently. Trust your quantum core. It knows which timeline leads to success." Reynolds touched the pendant at her throat, feeling it pulse in sync with her ship's larger core. Around the Genesis, space itself seemed to fold like origami, creating patterns the human eyes were never meant to see. The quantum field had transformed their 50 ships into a mathematical expression of pure possibility. "Look," Park pointed at the view screen. The stars themselves appeared to bend around Earth's fleet, creating a tunnel of distorted space-time that defied conventional physics. "All ships," Reynolds commanded, allowing herself a fierce grin. "Execute final jump sequence. Let's show the hegemony why you should never underestimate human ingenuity." The quantum cores pulsed one final time, and Earth's fleet began to fade from normal space, not with a bang or a flash, but with an elegant dissolution into pure probability, leaving behind only the echoes of what might have been, could have been, and never was. Reality bent, twisted, and finally snapped back into place. The Genesis materialized behind the hegemony's command ship, but not in any way physics said it should. Captain Reynolds watched in fascination as her vessel existed in 12 places simultaneously, each version equally real, equally deadly. "Quantum core stabilized," Park reported, his hands dancing across controls that flickered between multiple states. "We're everywhere, Captain." He wasn't exaggerating. The Genesis had emerged from its quantum jump as a probability storm. Through the view screen, Reynolds could see her own ship attacking from different angles, each version trailing ghostly echoes of quantum fire. The effect was disorienting but devastatingly effective. "All ships, execute pattern Omega," she ordered. "Dr. Mitchell, what exactly are we seeing?" The scientist's voice crackled with excitement. "The quantum jump didn't just move us through space. It's allowed us to exist in multiple probability states simultaneously. Each ship is now operating in several timelines at once, all of them successful." Across the void, Earth's fleet materialized like avenging spirits. Each vessel appeared in multiple locations, their quantum cores creating a web of temporal duplicates that moved with perfect coordination. Weapons fire from one timeline could affect targets in another, making conventional shields useless. Admiral Xarlos watched in horror as his tactical display tried to make sense of the impossible. "How many ships?" I don't know, sir," Vex responded, his scales shifting rapidly between colors. "Sensors show 50 signatures, but each one exists in multiple quantum states. Our targeting systems can't lock onto anything solid. It's like trying to shoot at shadows that can shoot back." The Genesis's quantum duplicates demonstrated this by firing a synchronized volley. Energy beams lanced out from 12 different positions, converging on a single hegemony cruiser. The alien vessel's shields flared uselessly as attacks from multiple timelines bypassed their defenses completely. "Fascinating," Dr. Mitchell mused, watching the data stream. "The quantum cores are actually learning from each timeline, sharing information across probability states. Each version of our ships knows what worked in other realities." Reynolds witnessed this firsthand as she watched her fleet execute maneuvers that seemed to anticipate the hegemony's responses before they happened. The alien fleet's formation began to break as ships fired at targets that existed everywhere and nowhere at once. "Status of the quantum field?" Reynolds asked, watching another set of her temporal duplicates perform an impossible maneuver. "Stable and strengthening," Mitchell replied. "The more they try to track us, the more probability shadows we generate. Their sensors are actually helping us create more quantum duplicates." A massive hegemony dreadnought fired its main cannon at one version of the Genesis, only to have the beam pass through a temporal echo. The real ship, or one of its real versions, appeared behind the alien vessel, its weapons finding vulnerable spots that existed microseconds ago or wouldn't exist for several seconds more. "Sir," Vex's voice rose in panic. "Their weapons, they're hitting us before we raise shields, striking weak points before damage creates them. It's like they're attacking from past, present, and future simultaneously." Xarlos watched another of his ships fall to the quantum assault. His mighty fleet, terror of 1,000 worlds, was being systematically dismantled by what appeared to be ghost ships dancing through time itself. "All ships, continue quantum synchronized attacks," Reynolds commanded. "Dr. Mitchell, can you strengthen the temporal effect?" "Already on it. The quantum cores are resonating with each other across probability space. Each successful attack creates new tactical possibilities that we can exploit." We're not just fighting in 3 dimensions anymore. We're fighting across entire timelines. The space around Earth's fleet had become a quantum ballet of impossible movements and devastating precision. Ships appeared and vanished in coordinated patterns, their temporal duplicates weaving a web of destruction that the hegemony's most advanced systems couldn't comprehend, let alone counter. "Remember what you said about humanity's greatest trick, Captain?" Park asked, watching another successful strike. Reynolds nodded, allowing herself a grim smile as her quantum duplicates continued their dance of devastation, making the impossible look inevitable. And right now, we're making their defeat look like it was always meant to happen, in every possible timeline. The battle had evolved beyond conventional warfare into something that resembled a cosmic dance. Earth's fleet, existing in multiple quantum states, executed attacks that defied not just physics but the very nature of cause and effect. Each ship generated cascading waves of temporal duplicates, turning 50 vessels into an armada that struck from past, present, and future simultaneously. "Primary target neutralized," Park reported, as another hegemony battleship went dark. "Their shields failed before they even raised them. We hit them at the exact moment of their power-up sequence, across 3 different timelines." Dr. Mitchell's voice crackled through the quantum-enhanced communications. "Captain, we've discovered something extraordinary. The quantum cores aren't just creating temporal duplicates. They're learning from all possible futures. Every successful attack teaches the system which probabilities lead to victory." Reynolds watched as her fleet's temporal echoes multiplied exponentially. The Genesis alone now existed in 18 distinct probability states, each one perfectly coordinated with its alternatives. Through the view screen, she could see the hegemony fleet's formation dissolving into chaos. "Their tactical AI has crashed completely," Park announced with a hint of satisfaction. "They're trying to revert to manual targeting, but how do you aim at something that exists in multiple times simultaneously?" Admiral Xarlos's mighty fleet, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, found itself being systematically dismantled by what appeared to be ghosts. Every time they adjusted their tactics, Earth's ships had already countered them, because in some timeline, they'd already seen it happen. "Sir," Vex's scales had turned almost white with fear. "We're detecting quantum signatures in our hull integrity fields. Somehow they're attacking our ships before the metal was even forged." "Impossible," Xarlos roared, but the evidence was undeniable. Earth's quantum-shifted weapons were striking through time itself, finding weaknesses that existed throughout a vessel's entire history. In the underground facility, Dr. Mitchell's team worked feverishly to understand what they'd created. "The quantum field is expanding geometrically," she reported. "Each ship is generating its own probability matrix, but they're all interconnected. We're not just sharing tactical data, we're sharing successful futures." Reynolds witnessed this firsthand as her tactical display filled with information from battles that hadn't happened yet, or had happened in alternate timelines. The Genesis quantum core processed this data instantaneously, allowing her to coordinate attacks that existed outside normal causality. "All ships, execute timeline convergence alpha," she ordered. The effect was devastating. Every temporal duplicate of Earth's fleet converged on key targets simultaneously, their weapons fire arriving from dozens of different quantum states. Hegemony shields, designed to handle energy attacks from a single timeline, crumbled under assaults that existed across multiple realities. "Their flagship's reactor is destabilizing," Park reported with grim satisfaction. "The quantum strikes are affecting their containment fields across multiple temporal states." Dr. Mitchell's voice held a note of wonder. "Captain, the quantum cores have achieved something unprecedented. They're not just predicting possible futures, they're actively selecting the most advantageous timeline for each ship. We're literally choosing the reality where we win, moment by moment." Another hegemony vessel vanished in a spectacular explosion that rippled across several timelines. The alien fleet's remaining ships began to break formation, their crews unable to cope with an enemy that seemed to exist everywhere and nowhere at once. "Status of our quantum cores," Reynolds asked, watching her temporal duplicates execute another impossible maneuver. Operating at 112% efficiency, Mitchell replied. The temporal feedback loop is actually strengthening them. Each success creates new possibilities, which generate more temporal duplicates, which lead to more successes. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. Admiral Carlos watched in helpless rage as his fleet was systematically dismantled by what had seemed like easy prey. The humans weren't just beating them. They were rewriting the rules of space combat itself. Each attack came not just from a different direction, but from a different point in time. "Your orders, Captain," Park asked, as the Genesis's quantum duplicates regrouped for another strike. Reynolds allowed herself a fierce smile. "Show them why you should never corner a species that thinks in 4 dimensions. All ships, prepare for final assault pattern. Let's teach the hegemony what happens when you mistake humanity's restraint for weakness." Admiral Carlos stood on his flagship's bridge, watching his mighty fleet crumble before what should have been impossible. The humans, quantum-shifted vessels, danced through reality itself, each attack coming from weapons that existed in multiple states of possibility. His own ships, pride of the hegemony, were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that had transcended conventional physics. "Sir," Vex reported, his scales now a sickly gray, "we've lost 40% of the fleet. Their quantum attacks, they're not just destroying our ships, they're erasing them from probability itself." Through the command view screen, Sarlos watched the Genesis phase into existence directly ahead of his flagship. Not just one Genesis, dozens of temporal duplicates, each one equally real, equally deadly. Captain Reynolds' voice transmitted across all frequencies, reaching them through time itself. "Admiral Carlos, this is your final warning. The hegemony's era of unopposed expansion ends today." In the underground facility, Dr. Mitchell monitored the quantum readings with growing amazement. "Captain, the cores have achieved perfect synchronization across all probability states. Each ship now exists in up to 24 different timelines simultaneously. We're not just beating them. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of space combat." Reynolds watched her tactical display as Earth's fleet executed their final attack pattern. 50 ships, each existing in multiple quantum states, converged on the remaining hegemony vessels. Their weapons fire crossed temporal boundaries, striking targets that existed microseconds in the past or future. "All ships, execute timeline convergence Omega," she commanded. The effect was devastating. Every temporal duplicate of Earth's fleet fired simultaneously, their attacks synchronized across hundreds of probability states. Hegemony shields, designed to handle energy weapons from a single timeline, shattered under the assault. "Their flagship's bridge is exposed," Park reported. "Quantum targeting solutions ready." Reynolds keyed her comm. "Admiral Carlos, look around you. Your fleet is in ruins. Your tactical advantage is gone. Humanity will not bow to the hegemony, not in this timeline or any other." On his crippled flagship, Sarlos faced the impossible choice. His sensors showed the human fleet existing in multiple quantum states, their temporal duplicates ready to strike from every conceivable angle. The technology they wielded wasn't just advanced, it rendered conventional space warfare obsolete. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered, his scales shifting to the deep blue of submission. "Signal our surrender." The quantum cores hummed in harmony as Earth's fleet maintained their temporal advantage. Dr. Mitchell's voice crackled through the command channel. "Captain, we're detecting something remarkable. The quantum field has stabilized into a permanent matrix. We can maintain multiple temporal states indefinitely." Reynolds allowed herself a moment of pride. "Broadcast on all frequencies, including temporal bands. As of this moment, Earth and her colonies are declaring independence from any alien authority. We possess technology that makes us untouchable. Remember this day, and remember why you should never underestimate humanity's capacity for innovation." The hegemony fleet retreated in disarray, their mighty ships limping away through conventional space, while Earth's quantum-shifted vessels watched from multiple timelines simultaneously. In the days that followed, Word spread rapidly through the galaxy. The supposedly primitive humans had developed technology that transcended the very laws of physics. Dr. Mitchell, Reynolds called as the last alien ship disappeared from sensor range. Your father would be proud. We didn't just defend Earth. We changed the rules of the game entirely. That's humanity's true strength, Mitchell replied, watching the quantum cores pulse with newfound power. We don't just adapt to the universe's rules. We find ways to rewrite them. The Genesis's temporal duplicates gradually merged back into a single ship, though the quantum core continued to generate subtle probability shadows. Earth's fleet had emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They were no longer bound by linear time or conventional space. They had become something new, something that would forever change the balance of power in the galaxy. Your orders, Captain, Park asked as the fleet regrouped around Earth. Reynolds touched her quantum core pendant, feeling it pulse with possibilities yet to come. Send word to all colonies and outposts. Operation Quantum Shield is now active. The age of humanity has begun, across every timeline, in every possible future. The stars seemed to shimmer as Earth's quantum fleet took up their defensive positions, their temporal duplicates a constant reminder that humanity had evolved beyond the ordinary laws of physics. They had not just won a battle, they had revolutionized the very nature of space warfare itself. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations began to realize that the age of easy conquest was over. Humanity had awakened, and they had brought mathematics itself to war.